Okay, so now we're talking about the law syllogism. Um, remember, that's going to be two if-then statements, and then your answer, your conclusion is going to be an if-then statement. So if you get a job, then you will earn money. If you earn money, then you will buy a car. Notice you will earn money, you will earn money. It's very important that one is a if and one is a then. Now, they don't have to be repeated word for word, but same thing, one's a if, one's a then. Basically, those cancel and you combine the rest for your answer. If you get a job, then you will buy a car. And that would be your conclusion. This is a lot like if you've ever seen this, if A equals B and B equals C, then what? Well, then your conclusion is A equals C, because if A equals B and B equals C, then you can cut out the middleman and A equals C. That's law of syllogism. So it's to determine which statement follows logically from the given statements. Remember, using law of syllogism, we're going to have if P implies Q and Q implies R, then that means P implies R. So if Jamal finishes his homework, he will go out with friends. If Jamal goes out with friends, he will go to the movies. Well, we have the same thing that is repeated, so let's check. Jamal finishes his homework is going to be our P, and again, you can write it if you want to label it. He will go, now this doesn't have a comma then, but it could, it would be the same thing. Then he will go out with his friends. Jamal goes out with friends. Is that the exact same? No, one says he, one says Jamal, but it is the same statement. And so then we have Q implies, and again, it doesn't have a then, but he will go to the movies, and so Q implies R. I have the same thing twice. One's an if, and remember, it's really important, one's an if. And this does not say then, but it's a then statement. It's the conclusion. So I'm going to cut those out, and I'm going to combine the rest, and the rest is my answer. And make sure you combine it in the right order. It shouldn't be a then if statement. That doesn't make sense. It's an if then statement. So my conclusion is if Jamal finishes his homework, then, and like I said, it didn't say then, but it could have, then he will go to the movies. And check and make sure it makes sense. You think about it, if I read all of it together, if Jamal finishes his homework, then he will go with his friends, then he will go to the movies, right? Homework with friends, go to the movies is the order. So I can skip the middleman and say if he finishes his homework, he will go to the movies. I want you to pause this and look at it and see if it's valid, and if not, write it invalid, and if so, write your statement. Okay, if your alarm clock goes off in the morning, then you'll get out of bed. If you ride a bus, then you go to work. I don't have something repeated. I have a P implies Q, and then I have something totally different, so I'm going to call it R implies S. I do not have something repeated, so you would say invalid or no valid conclusion. There is nothing, no conclusion I can logically draw from this. No valid conclusion. Okay. Sorry, draw a valid conclusion from the given statement if possible. Tell which we're using. Okay, now remember, detachment, you're going to have an if then and a detached other statement. And in law syllogism, you're going to have two if thens. If it snows more than 5 inches, then school will be closed. If it snows more than 5 inches is your hypothesis. But then it also tells you it snows 7 inches. Now, does this say the exact same thing as that? No, but does it match the hypothesis? Yes, the hypothesis was it snows more than 5 inches. The other thing it gave you, that detached statement, was that it snows 7 inches. Okay, that is more than 5 inches. So this does work, and we can look. So the hypothesis is that it snows more than 7. Snows more than 5 inches, and the conclusion is that school will be closed. And we already determined it is valid because it does match the hypothesis, which is what it's supposed to. It can't match the conclusion. And it does have this detached second sentence, so it is the law of detachment. So now the conclusion you can draw is that it snows 7 inches, therefore your conclusion is school will be closed. Now remember, in the law of attachment, your conclusion should just be a statement, not an if sentence. On law of syllogism, it should be if then. Okay, I want to give you kind of an overview real quick. This is not written on your notes, but I highly recommend that you write it down. Actually, you know what? Go ahead. I'm going to require that you write all this down. I'll check it tomorrow as part of your notes. If a number plus 2 equals 5, then that number is 3. X plus 2 equals 5. Does this match a hypothesis? A number plus 2 equals 5, yes, it specifically says x plus 2, but yes, that matches. So this is valid. And your conclusion would be, well, then that number is 3. Except I don't want to say that because I have more specific. I know what that number is. That number is x. So I'm going to say x is 3, and that's your conclusion. Take the same given, the same first part of the given. If a number plus 2 equals 5, then that number is 3. This time they told me x is 3. Does that match the hypothesis? No, it matches the conclusion. So this is invalid, or I would say there's no valid conclusion either way. Okay, so there's an example of a law of attachment that works, and it doesn't. It matches the hypothesis, it works. Matches the conclusion, it doesn't. And remember, be specific as possible. Use whatever it's talking about here to be as specific when you draw your conclusion. Note that your conclusion is one statement, not an if-then. Law of syllogism, remember I'm going to have 2 if-thens, and my answer, my conclusion is going to be an if. If a number plus 2 equals 5, then that number is 3. If a number is 3, then that number is 9. We have then that number is 3, and if a number is 3. Are those exactly the same? No. One says that number, one says a number, but yes, that is the same thing. So one's an if, one's a then. That's really important. It has to happen. So I'm going to cancel out those and combine the rest. So my conclusion here would be if a number plus 2 equals 5, and I'm abbreviating, and that's fine on your part. I would recommend not doing that on an assessment. However, it's always fine to use numbers instead of words unless you're like actually writing a paper. So if a number plus 2 equals 5, then that number squared is 9. That's your conclusion, one if-then statement. Nothing that was repeated is in there. Let's contrast that to a very similar example. If a number plus 2 equals 5, then that number is 3. If a number squared is 9, then that number is 3. I have 2, then that number is 3. Great, that's what I have to have for syllogism. But they are both thens. I cannot combine these because one if and one then cancels. I can't combine these, they're both thens. So this is invalid. There is no conclusion I can draw. And you can check, if you tried, you would say if a number plus 2 equals 5, if a number, that doesn't make sense to have both of those ifs together. The same would happen if you had 2 ifs and no thens. So it has to be one if and one then that is the same and that cancels. Okay, awesome. You have homework in a daily tomorrow, so feel free to pause and recopy anything. Email me with any questions.